It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for February 16th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, that Nintendo Direct is probably still happening in the middle of February, and it's apparently already time to start talking about next-gen consoles. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Jason Fanelli, everybody. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm great. Since the last time we've spoken, I've gone through the largest generational change in history. Just like not really. I'm not really that interesting. No, things are good. Just still trying to digest the potential something burger that was yesterday. You've got people saying it was nothing. Got people saying it was something. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly, just based on the rundown you sent me, dissect a lot of it. Yeah, I mean, I have a certain opinion that I think, if I'm allowed to say it, is going to get me in trouble.
Oh, that's what I like to hear.
We'll see about that.
Make some waves. All that was definitely, I think it was a confirmation for whatever you wanted to hear. A lot of people wanted to hear something. They had it in their heads. They were mad, or they weren't mad, or they want to say Xbox is dead or not dead. And I think people could Rorschach test that in any way that they wanted to. And there's definitely a lot of that going around. All right, let's see. You know, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to start moving this up for a reason. So let's do this first, and then we can have some more bants. Let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings, or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube.
Hello.
Right, there we go. So, yes, what I'll probably do is, I'm figuring this out live in front of everybody, but that's the kind of show this is. I'll probably move that up a little bit, and I'll be like, hey, the aforementioned expert is Jason Fanelli. Jason's joining me today, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll be like, and then I can go, hey, Jason, looking good today. How you feeling about that wrestling? I think wrestling's pretty interesting right now.
I am so excited that one of the most interesting lead-ups to WrestleMania in recent history is going to culminate right here in Philadelphia. I cannot, the closer we get, the more excited I get. Mania is going to be nuts. Only going to night 2 right now. Still trying to sneak my way into night 1 somehow. But man, The Rock as a heel is something I didn't know I wanted until I had it. That's going to be so good. Tonight he comes back on TV. He's going to cut a heel promo for the first time in, geez, he tried to be a heel when he was fighting Cena, but nobody was having that.
No.
So we're talking like 21 years maybe that since he's been an actual bona fide heel. Yo, let's go.
It's going to be a good time. All right. You know what? We do have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with that Nintendo Direct is probably happening next week. It's still the partner showcase. I'll start by saying what I've always heard is, and I've always said repeatedly is, I heard it's happening by the middle of February. It might have been like, around the middle of February. I think when the other rumors started coming out and saying this week, I was definitely like, yeah, maybe. I don't know, but maybe. And I definitely bought into them as well. And then it sounds like it probably was supposed to happen this week, because I did hear that it got delayed because of the Xbox thing. Or, you know what? I heard that they had that conversation. What they actually ended up deciding, I'm not privy to that. I don't know. But earlier this week, they definitely had a conversation about moving it because of the Xbox thing. And the only way they could have moved it is if it was going to happen yesterday.
Right.
Now it does seem like it's happening next week. Pyoro is out on Twitter teasing it. I did notice that Pyoro, who's a really reliable leaker for Nintendo stuff, has, as far as I could tell, never really gotten anything wrong when they do decide to speak on something. He was like liking the tweet where I explained, hey, that this thing was delayed, things like that. So, and now has confirmed separately that there's going to be a partner showcase next week. Partner showcase, you excited about that? Or do you think that implies that more big things are coming from Nintendo relatively soon, that they're saving for that instead of like trying to force a direct to happen right now?
It's exactly where my thought process is. You don't put a partner showcase in your normal February Nintendo Direct slot unless you're going to follow it up with something a little bit bigger, which tells me that maybe March or April, and this is just prognosticating. Don't blame me for when this doesn't happen. only Jeff Grubb has the ability to take away Nintendo Directs, guys.
Only blame me.
Only him. But I could see like a March or April if they're going to reveal the next console, as seems to be the way they're going. If that would be its own like separate thing, as it was when the Switch first came out. The first trailer was October, then the January blowout, and then it came out in March. If my timeline
That sounds about right.
My memory serves. So I would expect something like that now. And a partner showcase is a good way to appease the masses, for lack of a better term, who are expecting the annual February Nintendo Direct to happen. Also, too, what could Nintendo possibly have first party that they wouldn't now be saving for Switch 2 anyway, right? So if that
Metroid
console's
Prime
coming
4.
up, if that's a Switch 2 launch title,
Yeah, it probably is.
yeah. So
Plain milk's fine. Sorry, I just want it. I just want it right now.
Me too. Me too. That was what, 18 they first announced that?
Yeah, right? I mean we are
like
like last week or the week before that was the 5-year anniversary of them rebooting the development.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, which is
God.
Messed up.
Yeah,
Sean doesn't want me to give in and doesn't want me to stop believing about Metroid Prime 4 coming primarily to the Switch. I'm losing hope because it's hard not to like read things the way that you're laying it down, where it's like we get this partner showcase because what games would Nintendo have to put in a Direct right now for the Switch 1? They would of course be saving so much for a Switch 2 that we all primarily believe is coming out later this year. I know there's some rumors out there about it's not coming until 2025. I guess who the fuck knows? We'll see. But for now, it's like we assume it's coming probably later this holiday. And if that's the case, well, they're probably going to start rolling things up into the marketing scheme for that and a Direct in February to kind of distract from that when you're about to start having those conversations would be, in fact, a distraction. So yeah, it's hard for me not to lose faith that Metroid Prime 4 is going to somehow pop up between now and when they are full blast, full bore going into Switch 2, which could begin at any moment now, it feels like.
Yes, and now that's not to say that games that are launching on Switch 2 would be exclusive to Switch 2. Metroid Prime 4 could pull a Twilight Princess. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But is it possible just to keep your hopes up? Yeah, sure. I'll pat your head for that. No problem. But like this partner showcase does have, like, if we're going to look back on the history of this a couple of years from now, does have the sort of impact that a normal Nintendo Direct would, because this is the one, supposedly, where Xbox is going to announce first-party games for Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean...
Right? That historically will be could be at least a watershed moment in both companies' histories. And just it started with... Banjo and Smash and Ori, they really tested the waters a little bit, and now we're coming to this, and then who knows, maybe Metroid Prime 5 will be a co-op with Master Chief. That sky's the limit, people. And I think putting a partner showcase with this sort of announcement in it is a good whistle wetter, which is a weird thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's a good term.
Good term, good whistle wetter. So I'm hoping that we're right about this, and we'll see some Switch 2 action March, April, especially if they're leading up to a fall 2024 release. I would hate to see that wait for the June Nintendo Direct, but sounds like something they would do too. Honestly,
it'd be tough for them to wait till June for a couple of reasons. I mean, the big thing is GDC is in March, and they're going to be at GDC, and they're going to be talking to developers, and developers are going to be talking to each other. And the ones that almost certainly do have Nintendo Switch 2 development kits right now will begin talking about, I mean, it does have this and has that. I mean, do you guys have one? Well, I mean, if you don't, let me tell you a little bit about it. That shit's going to start leaking a lot in March. Yep. So if you're Nintendo, that it's not like that would be some crazy thing to begin the marketing in March, even if it is like just an initial trailer, an initial like, here's what it is, here's a spec sheet, and the spec sheet's like pretty vague, but it lines up with the leaks that would be coming out of GDC anyhow. It lines up for those reasons in a lot of ways. And then you're right, you're like this partner showcase could still be pretty interesting. I mean, I've heard from a couple people now there's at least one Microsoft game in there, and I think we all can kind of put two and two together based on what we just saw from them yesterday, and we'll get into the Xbox news here pretty soon. But it's probably Pentiment, maybe Hi-Fi Rush, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, that is pretty exciting that's happening, and there's plenty of games still to play on the Switch if you haven't caught up on everything. And then next month things really kick off, or next month, or maybe April. We'll see.
Maybe they don't want to overshadow Princess Peach Showtime, which in this house is the biggest game release in a decade, if you ask my younger children. March 3rd would be an interesting day to put out the first official, because it's the 7-year anniversary of the first Switch. The only problem is it's a Sunday. Is that something you do on a Sunday?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, so that's
they don't like doing that.
Pause there. No, and I don't blame them. So maybe that week, maybe Monday,
maybe that week.
4th.
I mean, they'll do something around that time. So yeah, maybe. Or maybe they do something and then it happens a little bit later when in the month when they actually decide to do something with the Switch and it's completely unrelated. It's all possible. We'll see. Yeah. At the very least, Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase next week. We'll see if there's anything interesting in there. Could be some, beyond the things that we have had leak. Sounds like it could be just a pretty decent showcase, and we'll be playing some games out of there relatively soon. So that's nice. Yep. It would be nice if it was if like Pentiment was like the shadow drop. If like that day you should be playing Pentiment, that'd be cool. Great.
And then spare a thought for the Hollow Knight folks. Let's see.
Listen, they don't deserve rights. What are you talking about? Xbox confirms it's bringing 4 games to rival platforms. Let's get into it. There's a lot of headlines from this, a lot to talk about, and it's like you alluded to earlier, maybe in some ways kind of something of a nothing burger and maybe a something burger. Let's start here with Andy Robinson at VGC. Microsoft has confirmed that 4 unnamed Xbox exclusives will be released on other platforms such as PlayStation 5 or Nintendo Switch. According to The Verge sources, corroborated by VGC, those 4 games will be Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. The news was announced as part of a new podcast designed to give an update on plans for the Xbox business going forward, in which gaming boss Phil Spencer claimed that the decision had been made to ensure, quote, the long-term health of Xbox. In the podcast, Spencer said that Starfield and Indiana Jones, titles previously reported to be in consideration for PlayStation 5, would not be going to multi-platform. In a separate interview with The Verge, the executive said he wouldn't rule out the possibility for these titles to arrive on PS5 in the future. I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out a game going to any other platform, he said in a quote. He also claimed the 4 unnamed releases did not represent a change to our fundamental exclusivity strategy, and there was no promise beyond those titles coming to rival platforms. To ensure long-term success for both Xbox and in the industry as a whole, we must continue to evolve, Xbox said in a statement. Today, we announced that we will expand the communities we reach. We are currently in the process of bringing 4 Xbox games to other platforms. These are titles which have been available to Xbox players for at least a year, including hidden gems that deserve to be experienced more widely, and live service games whose communities will benefit from welcoming even more players. Let's start here. This feels like a step forward as that is a further manifestation of the strategy that Xbox was already pursuing in many ways. Is that accurate in your estimation?
Yeah, this is just like I was saying in the last story. This is just a continuation of things that they had already been slowly throwing throwing darts at the board to see what sticks and what doesn't. Learning the ecosystems, at least of the Switch, PlayStation. I'm racking my brain to see if there was any Microsoft publications there. I can't think of any off the top of my head that have already happened, like Ori on the Switch and Minecraft Steve and Banjo and Smash Brothers. Yep. So maybe they started with the Switch and then moved on to PlayStation. But yes, this is just the next step in that plan. Is it the death of the brand as the social media told us it was leading up to this? No, but it makes sense. Like live service games being on more platforms just makes sense. Yep. I understand the logic in all of this. 2 smaller games over a year old just to expose them to a new audience. I understand the logic with these 4 games. And if these serve as the stepping stone to other things later on, so be it. Do I think we're going to see things like Gears of War or Halo on PlayStation? No, not at the moment. But if that were to happen, would I be completely, falling on the floor shocked by it? No, because they're laying the groundwork right here. So honestly, more players, as they've said, is a good thing. More players playing your games is a good thing. The only real controversy will be the ones who have, dug their flags in the sand for their respective consoles and are fighting a non-existent console war. All right, now I'm gonna get in trouble. I got to back off. So yeah, I mean, I have no problem with this, but then again, I'm also a guy who owns all the consoles for my work. I have to, so it doesn't really affect me all that much. But all 4 of these games, I believe, I have already downloaded on Xbox to begin with. So it's not. Well, I understand it doesn't affect me personally. For the person who can only afford one console and went PlayStation, they can try Hi-Fi Rush now. That's pretty cool. If they like pirates, they're going to love Sea of Thieves. And small little thing, Rare being back on Switch, if Sea of Thieves goes there, that's just nice.
That's just
a nice
neat.
Full circle moment.
It's neat. Yeah, get some more of those games on NSO, for real. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right to talk about like laying the groundwork. I mean, he said, hey, these are the 4 games. These are the only 4 games we're promising. And beyond that, Starfield and Indiana Jones, we're saying right now that those aren't going multi-platform. And then he was very quick to say, and we will never rule out anything. He also said something along the lines of, not everything is coming, but everything is on the table. Basically. Sure. So it's like both things are true. Everything's on the table, but not every single game will be coming. So it's like the strategy is still the same in that not all these things are going to start out as exclusives in one way or the other. And then it's changing at the same time while remaining the same in that they are maybe more widely considering more of them for other platforms once they get to the extent of what they can accomplish on Xbox and PC, which is how they describe the state of all 4 of these games. Is like they've kind of reached their potential on Xbox and PC, and we can all kind of glance over at stuff like Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment and assume that's almost certainly the case. And for the live service games, it's probably like, yeah, I mean, having more players in there is only going to be a benefit. And then at the same time, I think that we can expect that this is probably going to mostly work out pretty well and not have much of a backlash once it actually starts happening. And they will probably decide to start doing this more frequently in the future. And of course, I think that's just fine. There's a lot of ins and outs in terms of them trying to insist on the maintaining value of the Xbox console as a platform unto itself. They do talk about that in some ways. One of the things they say is that Game Pass is still a big thing. It will continue to be only available on Xbox platforms. So that doesn't mean PC, but it's only going to be available on consoles on Xbox because mostly it seems like because Nintendo and PlayStation won't let it on there. But if you want to find a separating factor between those other consoles and the Xbox, a reason to get an Xbox, they point to Game Pass. The statement also appears to dismiss concerns that players' Xbox libraries will be shut down in the future, saying the company's commitment to game preservation is unwavering, and that's their way of putting that. Xbox players should have confidence in building your digital library in the Xbox ecosystem, a statement says. We will continue to reward that with the most robust, player-friendly experiences, including backward compatibility, cross-play, cross-save progression, convenient cloud gaming, and more. And this seems to be like the one of the big reasons that they had this podcast and these explanations where it's like, hey, they can say 4 games are coming to these other platforms. And we're like, oh yeah, okay, we get it. That's a press release. The follow-up concern from a lot of people is, well, we are worried about the slippery slope. Eventually people don't want to buy an Xbox anymore, so you stop making Xboxes, and that means there's no longer much of a reason for you to have an Xbox ecosystem where you sell us games, and then what happens to all these games that we purchased? And they're like, right now, today, we've envisioned it as we are going to keep selling you games, and we're going to keep selling you other people's games, and that's not going away in any way as far as we're concerned. Do you think that they were able to get that across?
If you combine the blog, the podcast, and the YouTube airing of said podcast, yes. But I feel like each of them sort of missed things that the other one added context for. And if you weren't trying to get the entire picture, you might have missed something. Because like I said, there was a lot of people in reaction to this that were saying that this was really nothing. They were just kind of putting a smoke screen up or whatever. So I don't think they've reached everyone, but I think they've convinced enough people that they're not going away and it's not the death of the brand. It was always wild to me that the people were saying they were worried about their digital libraries being taken away by the company who, if you go back the years of E3 press conferences, one of the most famous ones is them announcing backwards compatibility. They clearly care about preservation to an extent. They were not taking your library away. whether it just translated to PC, if the consoles were going away. Remember that rumor? They weren't making consoles anymore. What a weird week this was. Just a weird week.
It was. I mean, and it's like a little bit frustrating because you're like, okay, hey, they were considering Gears of War for this, and it's like, yeah, they were having a conversation, and I'm like trying to report that, and it's like that very quickly, because of social media and things going through the telephone from one person to the next that does turn into stuff like they're not making consoles anymore and all this stuff. And it's like, no, that's the rumor. And it's like there was never actually a leak saying Xbox was done making consoles, or even that they were putting Gears of War on PlayStation 5. It's like, no, they just had a conversation. And it's like, so we come out and they're like in this thing, they never said that they didn't consider. They didn't even say they didn't consider Indiana Jones. They just said it's not happening. They didn't say there was no conversation, because there was. There was a conversation about all these things. The reality is these companies probably always talk about this all the time. The conversations that I'm referencing are more serious than that. Like, where it's like these companies always like are looking at. There's always someone at a company doing math about this stuff. It's like, no, this was like Phil kind of having conversations with people about like, what could this look like? Now, I think the reaction informed what we got in this podcast, I think, to a certain extent. But I think that does not mean that they find ways to continue to make bigger and bigger steps going forward. One of the rumors to come out of this, now that things have shooken loose, is that Gears of War, the one I mentioned before, but also Doom and Flight Simulator are also being considered for other platforms. And it's like, yeah, like all those kind of, at a certain point makes sense. Gears of War is maybe the biggest one because it's like that's such an Xbox thing, but it's like it's been years, and if they put like the Xbox or the Gears of War original trilogy out as a collection on PS5 at like the year before they're going to put out Gear 6, it's like that just makes a ton of sense at a certain point.
Yeah. And the other two, Doom, which has been on PlayStation already, and Flight Simulator, which has universal appeal.
Right.
Again, they all make perfect sense. This whole situation sounds to me like Phil and whoever negotiates the contracts with the third-party publishers left a meeting where they were getting console exclusivity on Xbox for 6 months or a year. They looked at each other and they said, why don't we start doing that? We release something, and then a year later we start talking about maybe bringing it to Switch and PS5, and then this is where we've come from that. Yeah, it sounds like the same thing. It's just they don't have to say they're console exclusive in the beginning because everyone assumes it. They're first-party games. It's the same sort of mindset for me. So seeing, again, Gears of War is the one that sticks out to me the most because it's been Xbox exclusive day one, hasn't changed. So seeing that on PlayStation would be wild.
It'd be wild. Capacity. It would be.
But Doom and Microsoft Flight Sim, and even the 4 that are heavily rumored to be coming, not as eyebrow raising. No. Not quite as eyebrow raising. I don't think.
It's also an acknowledgement that we are in a different world than we had been with consoles for our entire lives. And this is something that if you go listen to that podcast, Sarah Bond brings this up. I think Phil Spencer, Matt Booty bring it up in so many ways. But Sarah Bond explicitly said, like, 4 years from the beginning of consoles up until recently, it was the big thing. The big boy in the room was the console. And then all the games came out and served the console. It's like, it's about selling the console. And then about 10-ish years ago, that started to flip. And now they're like, we're looking at numbers, and we look at Roblox. And Roblox is significantly bigger than the console business in many ways. And it's like, at a certain point, it flipped. And now the consoles serve these mega games that are the platforms unto themselves. Fortnite and Call of Duty and Roblox and the like. And it's like, for us to keep pretending that these games are serving the console is at a certain point, it's a dereliction of understanding our business, and it would be negligent. We can't keep behaving that way because it's not true anymore. And so we need to recognize what we need to do to kind of maybe begin making games that are like those. And that means not just focusing on keeping games on the Xbox. That is, it would be self-defeating at a certain point. It's like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, it would be a fallacy to think that a game like Fortnite is inferior to the Xbox.
Right, that is the platform now.
It's not.
Yes.
Yeah, that is the and they're releasing their own games for it, and like Lego Fortnite. Lego Fortnite should have been its own separate console release 10, 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Isn't Lego Worlds a thing? Didn't they try this? And that didn't work. So then they went into Fortnite, and now it's the second most popular thing on the platform, if not the most popular thing. I haven't looked at user numbers recently, active user numbers, but like that's where this is going. You're going to have your consoles and you're going to have your smaller games, and then you're going to have these major platforms that people are going to flock to simply because of universal access, mobile, console, PC. Pretty soon we'll be playing it in AR on Apple Vision Pros. Who knows? But I just see, I think this all made a lot of logical sense. How much of it was screened to make sure it made logical sense? I'm sure it was heavily edited. I'm sure those questions were not random, much as I love Tina Amini at Xbox. She's always done a great job. I don't think those questions were random. I think it was definitely a bit of damage control after the rumors came flying and the influencers started laying down their swords and crying over their Xboxes and causing all of this. That's what's going to get me in trouble. So yeah, I mean, is it the one console inevitability that people have been afraid of for decades? No. But is it them realizing that we can't stay in our own little box anymore? We have to go out and explore the rest of the world, open the vault, let's say. And that makes sense. I don't see why you wouldn't support that.
A ton more headlines out of this conversation, including this next one. Microsoft promises the largest technical leap you will have ever seen for its next hardware generation. This is from Jonas Maki at Game Reactor. During Thursday night's special episode of the official Xbox podcast, there was plenty of news about the future strategy for Xbox. This included debunking of the rumors that Microsoft was about to abandon the concept of exclusive games, an announcement of a summer event in June, the confirmation of Activision Blizzard games in Game Pass, and starting in March, and Game Pass having over 34 million subscribers. However, there was also another highlight, namely talk of the future hardware. Anyone who was worried that Microsoft was about to leave Xbox as a console can now put their fears aside. Not only was it confirmed that there will be new Xbox hardware announced this year, and people are assuming that's either an update to the Xbox Series X or maybe a handheld, but also the next generation was confirmed to be on the way, and it seems that Microsoft is going to go all out. Xbox President Sarah Bond said that we can look forward to the biggest generation jump we have ever seen, which may indicate Microsoft now wants to release a console that can compete with respectable PCs. Jason, I'll say, I was talking to Mike Minotti about this last night. He pointed out a possibility of what this might mean, that when Microsoft launches the next gen, their console, their top tier console, might be quite a bit more expensive than what PS5 puts out. And that could be the differentiating factor in that it is significantly more powerful than what anyone else has, and the price will reflect that, because at a certain point, why go head to head with the PlayStation and try to have an alternative when you could just like separate yourself in other ways? And I think that makes kind of a lot of sense at this point. What do you think?
I think they tested it in this current cycle, having the X and the S. They conditioned us to have two separate consoles, one slightly less powerful than the other, but still capable of running all the different things. And then in this next hardware generation, do the same thing, but move everything up. Instead of having one being 250 and one 500, you have the one 500 and then one 780. The price of building your own, moderately successful PC.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me. That Mike Bonatti knows what he's talking about. Now, how will that be responded to? I don't know. I think you'll have your people who buy every piece of new tech because it's shiny and nice, and I am definitely one of those people. But I also think you'll have people who may feel priced out, and that just takes them to PlayStation even more because their top console is less expensive than Xbox's top console, and then maybe they're just not worried about that anymore. I imagine that was a concern coming into this generation, but maybe next generation they're just like, look, balls to the wall. We got to try this. We got to do something. How big that generational leap will be remains to be seen.
Well, they said it's the biggest one ever. Why don't you believe them, Jason?
Because the one we're in now was the biggest one ever. It just keeps getting biggest one ever.
Yeah.
We'll see. And I think now if they call the top one a console PC hybrid or something like that, like they make up a new word to say that it's PC capable or PC powerful. Sure. I don't know what that word will be, but I don't know. I'm not enthused about talking about brand new consoles.
That's obviously the other side of it here. Yeah, right. Like, okay. I don't think they were going to come out and talk about it in these terms with the original plan for this conversation, where they were going to come out and talk about their evolving strategy or whatever. But you know, they did talk about it because I think they wanted to reassure people that they're in the hardware game for the long haul. So that's why we're talking about it. But it is a little bit frustrating just from a standpoint of this generation has had its stops and starts, and it feels like we are just getting started in a lot of ways, even though we are about to enter, you know, we're like year 4 right now. It's going to be year 5 later. It's like, okay, yeah, that really is like the second half of the life cycle, as Sony said in its earnings report about the PlayStation 5. And yet it's also like, we would kind of like to feel like we got a little bit of the fruit off that tree after letting it grow for a few years. And it doesn't feel like we got there. I think a big part about that is on the Xbox side of things, where it's like, hey, you have talked about a lot of games that you have promised, and most of those still have not come out, even though we are past Starfield, Avowed, Perfect Dark, Fable, those like 3 maybe being the big ones, but there's a lot of other ones as well. There's that, the Avalanche game I can never remember the name of, Contraband. There's
Contraband,
a whole list of games that they have announced years ago, have barely given us updates on, and feel like they're still pretty far away. And like Hellblade 2 is only going to start coming out this year. So it's like, okay, kind of like release some of these games, make us feel good about the investment we made before we have to start talking about the next one. But at the same time, this thing is years away, so they will have time to like smooth over that conversation, I think. But I don't blame anyone today for being very annoyed that we're talking about next gen hardware, right?
Yeah, I mean that especially with the stock issues that they had when they first came out, particularly on the PS5 side, but even on the Xbox side. I remember people, you know, the rush to get the Best Buy or Walmart.com to buy these consoles. I remember that very vividly. I was able to pre-order an Xbox. I was not able to pre-order a PlayStation 5. I was like three months late on the PS5 train or something like that. Didn't get it till February. I remember that frustration. And I don't look forward to doing it again because I don't want to see eBay listings of people who have 35 consoles and selling them for double the price. Not looking forward to that. If they're going to do this, they better start making them now. Start stocking, backfilling and stocking so that everybody who wants one on day one can get one. That's the part I'm like, I really don't want to deal with this shit again. I want to just play what I have. The game's not coming out is true, but I feel like for me personally, there's enough third-party stuff going on that I'm fine to an extent with them. You know, I want to see these games. Hellblade 2 is one of my most anticipated of the year, obviously. But, you know, if they come out in the next year or two, like Sony said, they're not coming out with any first party this whole fiscal year.
From existing known franchises is what they meant. Yes.
Right, sure. Yeah, thank you. So if Xbox sees that as a green light and maybe they have the ability to backfill the year, cool. All right, you've started releasing these games. To your point, though, they're not out yet. People might be frustrated. I completely understand that, but I feel like third parties have been doing their job, at least last year, doing their job in keeping the ship afloat.
Yeah, I think what we're doing right now is like we're getting a game every year, at least one game, maybe 2 games that feel like, ooh, this feels like a game that is taking advantage of the possibilities of what new hardware could do, and not just in terms of visuals, but in terms of enabling simulations. I think Baldur's Gate 3 obviously last year was a huge thing there, and the Zelda games, Tears of the Kingdom being pretty huge on that as well. But it's like that's, you know, run on a friggin' Switch. But I think that actually is not the point. I think the point is like we want games to feel like they are enabling and empowering new experiences. That's what's actually going to make it feel like different than the PS4 generation. Because right now, a lot of the games we're looking around and playing still feel like these are the games we were playing on PS4, but now maybe they run at 60 frames per second instead. And so, you know, it takes longer and longer to make games than ever before. So it feels like, yeah, those might still be coming. Those real genre defining and industry changing games are probably still coming for the most part. But there's a lot of reasons to assume maybe it's not, because those investments are so massive and the risks are so unknown that a lot of those companies are probably shying away from that and doing what they know works. And so we might just be stuck in this rut when it comes to these big AAA games for quite some time. And going forward, the generations are going to feel more mushed together and all like sort of messy of like, yeah, this is basically still PS4 even once we get to PS6. So yeah, again, I don't blame people for like getting frustrated talking about new hardware. At the same time, hey, if Microsoft also puts out a handheld Xbox along with all this other stuff, I'll be very excited. I like new hardware, and I think a handheld from a company like that is essentially a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally, I'm more than welcome that.
Yeah, for sure. I absolutely agree. I have been converted. This Legion Go that I reviewed for MMORPG.com is a beautiful thing. So if they want to take a shot at a portable PC like that, I'm all for it.
All right, we have more Xbox headlines. There's also, we're going to take a quick detour over to what Respawn is working on, but we're going to get all of that after this quick break. Okay, we are back, and like I said, let's take what's that? Oh, did you sneak it in there?
I was trying to sneak a cucumber. Trying to sneak a bite.
We caught you. All right. Over at Insider Gaming, there's a headline. Respawn is developing a first-person Star Wars Mandalorian game. This is from Tom Henderson. Insider Gaming sources have revealed that Respawn Entertainment is developing a first-person Star Wars Mandalorian game that is in its early stages of development. According to sources, the game will see players take control of a Mandalorian bounty hunter, unclear who, set during the time when the Galactic Empire is dominating across the galaxy. It's your job as a bounty hunter to capture bounties, dead or alive, for cash rewards. As first reported by VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb, at that time, the game was being led by Respawn creative director Mohammed Alavi, who left the studio to pursue his next adventure. According to Grubb, who didn't disclose it was a Star Wars game at the time, but has recently, the game will be focused on mobility and style as guiding principles. The game's high mobility has been made possible storytelling-wise thanks to Mandalorian's jetpack. Again, shout-outs to Mike Minotti, who likes any character with a jetpack, which allows the players to perform horizontal dashing, vertical jumping, boost sliding, somewhat similar to sliding down hills in Apex Legends, and more. Sources describe the game as very fast-paced, and as such will reward players who play in this style. For example, the player's health will mainly regenerate based on successive kills. As to be expected, playing as a Mandalorian bounty hunter gives players a wide variety of weapons and gadgets, including a wrist rocket, grappling hook, a visor for tagging enemies and bounties, and more. It's understood that the game will not be an open world and have linear levels taking place on a variety of different planets in the Star Wars universe. While it's unclear when the game will release, it's said we're still a year or two away at the very least. It's currently unclear if the game will have a multiplayer experience or not. I was going to check in on that. Been kind of poking around on this since Tom started talking about this yesterday on Twitter. I'm like, oh yeah, that thing. Let's see what's going on there. And I'm like, I haven't asked all my sources yet, but we'll see. What do you think of a Mandalorian Star Wars game by Respawn Entertainment? Let me start here, Jason, and say that Titanfall 3 was once a real thing.
Oh.
And some of the stuff I heard about it was so exciting. Like, basically what happened was the people who made Titanfall played Hades, and they're like, what if all of our powers worked similar to that? So it's like you had a dash, but then you could upgrade it so that dash like reflected enemies' bullets. And then what if you could upgrade it again so that it reflected it back at them? So you were rewarded for running right at the enemy, and it felt like really good. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, tell me more. Like, I'm scratching my arm. Like, holy shit, that sounds fucking awesome. That game was canceled. Oh. It sounds to me like some of those ideas, if not all of them, but some of those ideas could easily translate over to this game. And this is one, like, from the beginning, they were like stylized, mobility, just cool action. And then, yeah, it was like when Respawn started talking about like their other Star Wars project that they're making with that partner, the strategy game. They're like, hey, we're working with that partner. We're going to help them make a Star Wars strategy game. At that time, it was confirmed to me that this other first-person shooter was a Star Wars game. I did not know it was a Mandalorian game until very recently. So I think that's pretty exciting. I hope that it is. I just kind of hope it is just balls to the wall action and is the spiritual successor to Titanfall. What do you think of this, Jason Fanelli?
Titanfall's gameplay in a Mandalorian setting, sign me the hell up. That sounds awesome. Now, I hope they come out with this soon. The report said it's about a year or two away because, I don't know that it will completely satisfy the people who were just looking for a flat Titanfall 3, but if they can deliver that sort of Apex Legends style or even Titanfall 2 style first-person fast action with those roguelike elements like Hades that you just mentioned, it'll fly. It'll fly off shelves. I'm curious, though. The report says it doesn't say who the Mandalorian will be. Now, thinking about the Star Wars lore, do they create a new one? Do they maybe try to flesh out the backstory of someone who already exists? Do they give you a choice between two, male and female? It's at that part is what I find is where my brain goes first.
Yeah,
as to how they can elaborate on the story. It doesn't sound like it's going to be the Mandalorian, like a game version of the Disney Plus show.
Right. He would be
something else.
I guess he wouldn't necessarily be too young. Well, when does the Mandalorian show take place? That is like 15 years after Return of the Jedi, right? I can't remember exactly.
I believe it's between original trilogy and new trilogy.
Right. So depending on how long it is, it's like, is that character possibly old enough to have been doing bounty hunter stuff in when the Galactic Empire is at its power, which is when this game takes place. So original trilogy time or before. Maybe. I bet they do some new character. I bet that gives them a little bit more leeway.
Or maybe they use one of the Mandalorian characters, the other Mandalorians in the Mandalorian.
Right, there's a lot in that show, right? Yeah, good point.
The one played by Mercedes Vornado, Sasha Banks. Right. That would be interesting. Have her voice it. That would bring some star power to the game. That could be an interesting idea too. I just need them to tell us now. We know this. It's out. Just reveal it tomorrow, please, or Monday. You can wait till Tuesday. We're off on Monday.
President's Day. Yeah, give us a second.
Yeah. Tuesday. Let's go.
Yeah,
cool. Very cool stuff.
It's very cool. The when I was hearing about that Titanfall 3 stuff, one of the things that the developers were kind of frustrated by is they would watch people play, and then they would see that a lot of times, especially when stuff started getting like intense, gamers would default to playing it like Call of Duty. And they would just be like, I'm just running in the room and I'm firing my gun. And then I'm running to the next person. I'm firing my gun. And they're just like, do they not know that they can wall run? Do they not know they can double jump? Do they not know they can get in that ass and take these guys out in such cool ways? And it's like, players kind of know, but they didn't feel like necessarily hooked into having to do that. So a lot of people would abandon it. I had a great time. Like I was always on the wall running back and forth. But even I was like, there's definitely things like, oh yeah, I could be doing this cool thing. And I just forgot about that. I think what it sounds like they have here is we have all this cool stuff and we are like the HP replenishing by successive kills. Sounds like they're like, we played Doom and Doom Eternal and we played Hades, and we are looking for gameplay mechanics that will keep people moving forward and doing all the cool stuff they have in that game. And I'm very excited to play the Respawn first-person shooter that is informed by learning all those lessons. Because I think they had all of the best action in Titanfall 2, just then giving players a reason to have to use that stuff and really saying to every player, like, no, we know that you're happier when your boots are on the ground, but let's prove to you that actually you're going to feel even cooler once you're doing all this cool aerial stuff. I think that is I think Respawn can do that, and I think they could do it in a game that's going to be very, very good. So
yeah, and being an EA studio, they also have access, I would think, to sister studios assets and ideas. Maybe there's some Mirror's Edge in here too. I'm getting some Mirror's Edge vibes from the running and shooting and stuff like that. That would be awesome.
Yes. Again, I think it's going to be informed by all of these things. So shout outs to Tom for that story. All right, let's get back to some of the Xbox headlines. Xbox Game Pass now has 34 million fully paid subscribers. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. They dropped this when they were talking about some of the things that will be coming to Game Pass pretty soon. They said 34 million paid subscribers. That does include the Xbox Game Pass Core members who were previously Xbox Live Gold subscribers. Jason, I read this number in two ways. One, it's like, man, you look at some of the movie subscription services and they have like 100 million, 200 million. So this is a far cry from that, a far cry from where I think they want Game Pass to eventually get to. And yet we know that the Xbox Series X and S are at about 25 to 27 million consoles sold. So this is significantly more than all of the Xbox Series X's and S's in the world. And in that frame, it's actually a pretty good number. So it's like, I could see the negative, I could see the positive here. I think the reality is it's at 34 million and it's probably not growing super fast for them, which is why they are looking to all these other ways to increase their revenue. What does that sound like to you?
Yeah, I think they have started to see enough of a slowdown in subscriber base that they now feel they have to try the multi-platform thing that we spoke about above, because people will only buy new consoles so fast, and those are the people that you're really going to be selling new subscriptions to. I would imagine that the vast majority of Xbox owners, I don't want to say all, but the vast majority of Xbox owners have this
That's what it seems like.
Subscription, because it just makes sense. You're getting the online included. You're getting the games that are added to the service all the time that you can download for no extra charge. I think that this number should be viewed as a success, because does this also include PC?
Yes, I mean,
right?
it includes everything. Yeah.
So that's a pretty good. If you're taking out, if you just do the math, you said like 25 million
25,
consoles,
27. Yeah.
25 to 27, and you make that 7 to 9 million on PC. That's a pretty decent number, I would say, of people who are subscribed that use PC, because PC are going up against Steam, you're going up against EGS, you're going up against other things that you might not. I mean, sure, you're getting free games, but Steam gives you free games too, every once in a while. I think this is ultimately a good thing. Like, people may hear 34 million and immediately think it's low because they think subscriptions, and they go to the apps that you just mentioned, your Netflixes, your Disney Pluses, stuff like that. But in the context of what this is and how unique it is to the video game market, I don't think they have anything to worry about at all.
Yeah, and I don't think that this number includes that many Xbox Live Core members, because Gold. Like, who was subscribing to Gold when it's like, well, for a few bucks more, I just get Game Pass as well. Why wouldn't I just do that? Because Gold was like $10, and it's for 15 you get Gold and Xbox Game Pass. I think many people, and if you, for many years there, if you give us $1, we'll transfer all your Gold into Xbox Game Pass for however many years you already have Gold. So a lot of people took advantage of that deal a long time ago. I think in an interview, Phil Spencer even said that the Xbox Live Gold, like, transferring into Xbox Live Core, it's just not a very significant part of that number. And either way, the money's all green. At the end of the day, Microsoft's looking at this as, here's the people giving us money on a monthly basis for whatever reason, whether that's to get access to Game Pass or to Xbox Live Gold. That doesn't matter so much as the money they're giving us is green and it spends. That's what they're trying to talk about here. Now, yeah, I think I'm with you. This is that. It's like, when I first saw the number, I'm like, that seems pretty low, because I think I remember back in the day they had like something like 45 million Xbox Live Gold subscribers. But maybe that number was inflated by, like, man, that number could be back from when they had like Xbox like Silver or something. So it's like, I think I was remembering that and being like, okay, this number's like down, but the services now cost more, and there isn't like a lot of people would get Xbox Live Gold annually on sale for like $30, and it's like, no, now everyone's paying like $10 to $15 per month for all this stuff. So they're probably making a lot more money from these 35 million than they were making before, 34 million, excuse me. But yeah, I think that you said it. Everyone who seems to get an Xbox, like, based on this number, seems like they just get Game Pass as a matter of habit. And at a certain point, why are you getting an Xbox if you're not going to get Game Pass? And so them looking around being like, hey, can we sell more Xboxes to increase the sales of Game Pass? They were trying that. I think they're looking around like, that's not necessarily the path to getting from 34 million up to 100 million. We're going to have to actually take Game Pass to every screen. And that was a big thing that they talked about in their statements. And internally, the memos, they're like, Xbox is going to be on every screen. Game Pass is going to be on every screen. That's what we're going for. And that's the real solution if they're able to make that work. There's a lot of challenges involved with that, though, of course.
For sure. And as far as like selling the new consoles, like you said, the only opportunity that I could think of off the top of my head was back around Christmas time. I had some parents of kids who were playing games that knew nothing about it. I would recommend them an Xbox based on Game Pass, just because that I think is the only real avenue for growth, is like the new parents who have no idea what's going on with kids who are gamers, that this is an easy and cheap way to get them the games they want. And that has a cap, like a very hard cap, because some parents just don't even understand how to turn the console on, let alone the subscription stuff and stuff like that. So I'm definitely with you. I'm with you that there's nothing that they should be really worried about in this regard.
Yeah, I mean, be worried beyond the fact that it does seem like it's stagnating at the very least, in terms of, because you can only sell it to so many people who have Xboxes, and that's a tough road to hoe. But beyond that, it's like, yeah, if you want to get to that next tier, regardless of the ups and downs of how Game Pass is doing in the moment, which is, it's definitely going to have ups and downs based on people getting excited for Starfield versus like, well, now I'm going to wait for the next thing, so I'm going to cancel. I bet those fluctuations do a number in the millions, where it's like people are going to take a break for a while and then they'll come back when the next big game is here. That being in that zone, that's just not what they are concerned about. Like, oh, we're up 3 million, we're down 3 million, whatever. They are worried about getting to 50, then 100 million. And that's just not going to happen when they're just focused on the console. So they do talk about like PC Game Pass and cloud is growing double-digit percentages. It's like, well, yeah, I'm sure those are relatively small portions overall. So growing that should be easier, and that is reflected in that double-digit percentage growth. Activision Blizzard games are coming to Game Pass, starting with Diablo 4. This is from Eric Van Allen at Destructoid. After finally securing its acquisition of Activision Blizzard, Microsoft is now bringing the company's games under the Game Pass umbrella. Activision Blizzard titles will be heading to the Xbox Game Pass. Xbox President Sarah Bond announced the news in an official Xbox podcast. Hey, remember last year when we were talking about Diablo 4 and the developers were like, that's not coming to Game Pass, and now that's the first Activision Blizzard game coming to Game Pass. I thought that was pretty funny, but not too surprising either. It makes a lot of sense for that service, right?
It's a safe bet. If it's going to be the first one from Activision Blizzard, it is the safest bet. Multiplayer game, bunch of people can download it for no extra charge. I keep wanting to say free. It's not free. You're paying for the subscription.
Yep.
And then join in and build their characters. It makes the most sense. If they had started with Call of Duty, the internet would have burned. If they had started with something smaller like StarCraft 2 on PC Game Pass, people wouldn't have cared. So you got to find something right in the middle. And I like StarCraft 2. Don't make me think that I'm disparaging StarCraft 2, which doesn't have the relevance it used to. But Diablo 4 makes perfect sense. It's still relatively new, not even a year old yet. Has a healthy player base. This will add more players to it. It's the safest bet for the first one.
Yep, absolutely. Really I do wonder like how quickly all these other games start popping in there, and like they said every first party game is going to be in Game Pass, and now World of Warcraft is a first party game. Is that going to be in Game Pass? I really want to see what that ends up looking like because certain point, combining those subscriptions, that's actually how you get to 50 million probably pretty quickly eventually.
That's true.
Yes, or much closer to 50 million. I guess WoW does not have 20 or 15 million subscribers these days, but that would add a couple million to there potentially when they're at high tide. Microsoft says Windows is the weak point of the Asus ROG and Lenovo Legion Go. This is from Jonas Maki at Game Reactor. Who said this? Was it Phil Spencer or Jeff Grubb? One of the weak points in the experiences of a ROG or the Lenovo Legion Go is Windows. Answer, both of us. Because he's right, and I'm right. It sucks ass. He admits this. Phil Spencer admits Windows sucks ass. How Windows works on controller input only on that kind of DPI on a smaller 8 or 7-inch screen, that's a real design point that our platform team is working with Windows to make sure that the experience is even better. To me, this reads as, we're going to have an update to Windows that is going to make Windows make sense on these platforms at some point relatively soon, probably by the end of this year. I think we get to that hardware we were talking about, that hardware update that's happened around the holidays. I think they probably do have some updated hardware for the Xbox console. I bet as part of that, and they're like, and here is a new version of Windows built for handheld PCs that actually makes sense for when you don't have a mouse and a keyboard, and the touchscreen is small, so that it can actually function in a way that's, because like right now, Jason, I use my ROG Ally and I'll be like, I like thick, and the keyboard will cover up the password key, the password field. God. So I I'm trying to get in there, and the fucking tab won't tab me into there, and I have to like close the whole thing down and sort of like fake it and make the window smaller so I can move it up in the corner and get to the password. It's like that stuff is infuriating. Entering a password shouldn't suck that bad.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the Lenovo. It is that. Oh God, that sucks. I'm like, oh God, I got to type something here. Here comes the keyboard, and it's half my screen.
Yes,
and then I try to move it around, it doesn't move, and I have the term fat fingering something was created because of me. I'll go for one letter and hit 3, and then my password will be triple the length that it should be. Oh God, you're giving me PTSD here. But yeah, so I as soon as I saw this headline, I'm like, this is what Jeff warned me about when I first got the Lenovo. Like, I was talking about the sleep function, like coming back on and the screen being black, and you were like, I know what that's called. It's called Windows.
Yes.
I'm like, oh shit. But yeah, so I'm glad that he recognizes that. Don't be surprised though if this software update comes day and date with the potential handheld.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if we have to wait that long, whatever, but I hope that they, because it's to their benefit that this software is on all these devices, right? They looked over what SteamOS was doing and be like, hey, some of those handhelds might end up using SteamOS instead. Now, most haven't, Some are, though. Some are starting to be like, we're going to use SteamOS instead of Windows. They don't want that. That's Linux. That completely bypasses Windows. They want to avoid that at all costs. And the way to do that is to make it make sense on all these devices and to put it out as an update to the software that is just going to work and doesn't wait for the Microsoft hardware, which they might do only because it might take them that long to actually get Windows to fucking work on these things. All right. And then let's see the final Xbox headline real quick. Summer Showcase announced. They will show off more from Hellblade 2, Avowed, and a bunch of other games. Not some big reveal, but it's nice to hear them be like, yeah, we are 100% going to have something in our June showcase at around the time the E3 showcases previously happened. So we all have a reason to get together in Los Angeles again, probably for at least one big showcase and probably a handful. That's good news. I'm glad to hear that. I'm excited by these shows. How about you?
Yeah, I think last year when they kind of bookended Summer Games Fest with it, Summer Games Fest was Thursday, and then the play days were Friday, Saturday, and then this was or was it Monday because Final Fantasy was Sunday? I don't know. I think Sunday or Monday it was in there. That made sense. Like put it all in 1 week, make it as E3 adjacent could be. It seems to be something that the entire industry, players and companies alike, have started to expect, June being a sort of very big announcement time. So I get it. I do appreciate them telling me now so I can stay for it and not leave on Saturday night and just completely miss it like I did last year. Mm-hmm. It would be nice to actually go to the Xbox thing this year, assuming it's after Summer Games Fest again. But this is very, very cool. And I think that they could also start maybe to update us on not just what they're talking about here, but treat it like their old Xbox E3 presentation, have some third-party stuff, have some of the other games that we spoke about that we haven't heard about yet, Contraband, Fable, and the like, and really start to build that excitement up again. I personally love showcases like this. I'm one of the people who mourns E3 a lot. Like,
same.
Just very, very cool to be in those rooms and see those things. And I'm hoping that between this and what IGN's doing, and maybe we'll get some sort of semblance of that back.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it. I did mention like, they'll talk about Hellblade 2 and Avowed. I think they meant that they will talk about that leading up to those games coming out. So they're basically saying we're going to keep talking about all our stuff in many places, including our June showcase, but not exclusively so, which is why they brought up Hellblade 2. All right, let's just hit these last two pretty quickly. Bandai Namco reveals it recently canceled 5 games. This is on the heels, Jason, of Embracer saying that it canceled around 29 to 30 games. Both these stories come from the last week. That's about 35 games from just 2 publishers that have been canceled that we know about in the last. Well, they probably been canceled over the last several months, but we learned about it in the last week. That is very ominous to me. That is what people are talking about when they say they are worried about people being able to find jobs in this industry. If a huge number of swaths of games are being canceled midway through development, what does that mean for like the kinds of games that are getting green lighted? Almost certainly not many of those actually are getting the green light at the moment. So Scary stuff.
I think this is a tale of 2 stories. The Bandai Namco cancellation of 5 games is interesting. I wonder what part of Bandai Namco that is. Were these anime games where they're, maybe they have 2 or 3 games coming out from the same franchise, a couple of Dragon Ball games, and they thought, well, maybe we could update this one instead or something like that. Embracer, though, canceling that many games in 6 months is just another underlining of how over their heads they were. They had no idea what they were getting into buying all this stuff, and they are just reaping what they are sowing. And this is just the next example on the pile. I think history will paint them eventually as one of the biggest detractors from this industry in ever.
Net negative will be measured in human lives by what they've done. Yes.
Jobs, hopefully.
Yes, jobs,
not
right.
Lives.
Well, the livelihoods, I should say. Yes.
Yeah, livelihoods. There it is. Cool. The level of incompetence and overconfidence that is now being revealed is just absolutely mind-boggling. That press conference, or that thing that the one CEO had to do right after the deal fell through, should be shown in every gaming marketing, gaming business 101. Just say, this is what happens if you think you know more than what this industry can do. And don't be this. Don't be. It's just unbelievable.
Meanwhile, over at Namco Bandai, I'm going to say the name different every time. I was this morning, I was like just kind of singing to myself because I keep saying Namco Bandai, and everyone yells at me because that's not the name, even though it was the name for quite some time. They yell at me. And then so it's just like Namkai Bando is what I was saying that all morning. And then I think I accidentally said it here when I was talking about the show. Tekken 8 has sold 2 million copies after about 3 weeks. Yeah. So, hey, very good game, selling very well. Big shocker. I think that one of the things that happened, we're not going to have time to talk about the DICE Awards too much, but Spider-Man, big winner, and Baldur's Gate 3, obviously Game of the Year winner. When the team came out to talk about Baldur's Gate 3, they're like, hey, this industry looks pretty fucked right now. And hey, if you make fun games, those will sell better. And it's just like, yeah, hey, look at Tekken 8. It's a really fun game, and it's selling great. So, point taken.
Yeah, if you go to the GameSpot news article on the DICE Awards, if you want to see that speech, I happen to write that, and the speech is right there, linked in the first tweets, 2 tweets. Great speech. You should go check that out. If you want to see it real fast.
See Christian's yelling at me. They literally changed their name 10 years ago. 10 years ago is nothing when you've been along as long as I have, Christian. Post Malone is curating WWE 2K24's soundtrack and will be a DLC character. Jordan Midler on Twitter said, talk about post-launch content. And I want to hit him, but I can't because it's really good.
Yes. That's fantastic.
That's good stuff.
He's going to have his opponents running in circles.
This is fun. Whatever. Let's go. He's like producing the soundtrack. He's got a couple of tracks on there himself. There's a pretty good, there's Coulter Wall and Grimes. It's like eclectic the way I would expect Post Malone's mixed CDs to be eclectic. But yeah, him being a DLC character, I was not expecting that. That's really fun.
No, I mean, they're just building on Bad Bunny last year, doing the same thing. The only difference was Bad Bunny has actually been in a wrestling ring.
So he's a worker, brother.
He is great. So is this possibly a hint that Posty's going to jump in there too and slap Grayson Waller around? That'd be great. That remains to be seen. But no, this is cool. Admittedly, of the artists on this list, I've only heard of 3, possibly 4 of them before I read it. But that's just me being an old dad. So I'm excited to hear them as I peruse the menus and then eventually replace them with the theme songs of the wrestlers, because that's how I work. But hey, cool.
You mean you've not heard of the band Pigs?
If not.
Me neither. Is that 7 pigs? That's too many pigs, Jason.
And the song's name is Big Rig. They got something for the letters IG.
Oh boy. Oh man. Music, huh? That's weird.
Music, man.
Music is weird. That's my opinion on the matter. All right. I got a poll question I'm going to get to in a second. While I get that set up, Jason, make sure you tell people where they can find you. If people love you. Make sure they can follow you somewhere. Tell them about it.
Yeah, they follow me at Big Man Fanelli on Twitter and Instagram for random perusings about wrestling, video games, things that I'm working on. Every once in a while, you'll get a picture of my lovely children. And we have fun there. Writing news for GameSpot still, reviews at MMORPG. Recently reviewed Tekken 8 and Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which somebody in the chat yesterday while you were doing this with Jan was giving me crap for my Relink review. So if you want to go make fun of me, go head over there. Have a couple things in the pipeline. If you are playing Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth and you want to explore all of the sub stories, all 52 of them, your boy wrote the guides at IGN, so you can go check those out. And then and also I started a little side thing. I'm into tabletop card games, Magic, Pokemon, Lorcana, stuff like that. Started a little project called TCG Jawn being Philly slang for basically anything. Like this Jawn was fun today.
Oh, incredible.
On YouTube and TikTok, mostly opening packs, but I'm gonna start doing deck techs for Magic and stuff like that. So if you like TCGs and you want something else to look at, that's where you can do that.
Also, I wanted to talk about this one real quick. From Software acquired the Elden Ring trademark from Bandai Namco. We'll talk about that on Tuesday on the Bombcast, everybody. Because I'm interested in what that might mean. Because they didn't acquire the copyright, but the trademark might still have a lot to happen there. We'll talk about that. Definitely give Jason a follow. Get all the Johns from him. He's got the Johns for you. Get those Johns. Get the Johns. All right. Let's see here. Poll question. bring it up here. Are you picking up Mario versus Donkey Kong? 13% say yes, 87% say no. Does feel like one of those games that many people are going to feel just fine skipping over. The reviews were like, hey, this is pretty okay. And I am pretty excited to play it, but I'm not going to have time this weekend, I don't think. We'll see. All right. A new poll question that we'll get to on Wednesday, because we are off for President's Day on Monday. So we'll see you all on Game S Mornings on Wednesday. The Bombcast will be on Tuesday. New poll question. Are you going to try at least one of Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Grounded, or Sea of Thieves on PS5/Switch? Yes, no, or I already played those games on Xbox/PC. That poll is up now on youtube.com/@giantbomb under the community tab. You can find it there. Be sure to follow us on YouTube for whenever we post polls in the future. Beyond that, what do we have happening on Games Beat? I almost called Giant Bomb Games Beat. On Giant Bomb today, we are going to do UPF. It does say here, moved UPF up. And then Jan said, did we do this for this week? I don't know, Jan. You tell me. I think, listen, we will have a UPF, and I think we're starting it a little bit earlier, or maybe going a little bit longer, something like that. But look out for that today. And then we'll have Bombcast for Vengeance as well. We're going to do just some fun stuff and maybe talk about a handful of games. It should be a good episode. All right, Jason, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
Always happy to do it, Jeff. Whenever you need me, I'm here.
I will definitely take advantage of that in the future. Thank you all for listening. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.
Give yourselves a hand. Give yourselves a hand.
Woo!
Woohoo!
You started 30 minutes ago. Shit.
Someone in the chat was like, is Jason Fanelli Italian?